Tonight, we are learning more details about last night's triple shooting in North York.
Unfortunately, a 49-year-old male was pronounced deceased.
We'll have the latest on the homicide investigation. Plus,
going to do about 10 to 12,000 meals. We've gone through about 575 turkeys so far.
a shelter in Ottawa is serving its biggest Thanksgiving meal ever, hoping to help those struggling to keep up with rising food costs. And
people don't seem to suffer in silence as much anymore, but still, it's a work in progress.
Today is World Mental Health Day, and some advocates hope the day can be about more than just awareness. One man has died and two others are in hospital after a shooting near Dufferin and Finch last night. It happened at a busy indoor soccer facility. Greg Ross has the latest.
Just after 7 p.m. Sunday night, police say a man walked into this indoor soccer facility on Finch Avenue near Dufferin and opened fire.
3 people were shot. All 3 were transported to hospital.
One of the victims was 49-year-old Edwin Quintero of Woodbridge. Police say he later died, becoming Toronto's 56th homicide victim of the year. They say the other 2 victims remain in hospital.
Another individual is in life-threatening condition and another individual is in non-life-threatening condition.
At this point, the motive behind the shooting here last night is unclear. Police can't say if it was targeted, and they only have a vague suspect description.
Right now, all we have is male, mid-20s, in all dark clothing, wearing a mask.
Police can't say whether or not the suspect was acting alone or if he had help. They're appealing to anyone who was here last night and may have witnessed something.
There were multiple people there at the time of the event, so we're just asking any witnesses or anyone with video to come forward and provide it to police.
Police say they are also reviewing any security footage available to them in the area. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's police watchdog is investigating after a 25-year-old man died following an interaction with police in Vaughan last night. This was the scene this morning outside the event center at Highway 7 and Vaughan Valley Boulevard. York Regional Police saying they received the call just before midnight with reports of a man inside with a firearm. After an interaction with one officer, the man was shot, was transported to hospital with serious injuries. He died this morning. The SIU continues to investigate and encourage any witnesses or anyone with surveillance footage of the incident to contact them. Premier Doug Ford today posting a Thanksgiving message to his social media.
We're here in Etobicoke North at the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the great folks here. We just delivered some food to their food bank. They give hundreds of meals out to this community every single week, and we just want to thank them. We're very
the Premier also encouraging others to donate to food banks if they can. Toronto's Mayor John Tory issuing a similar Thanksgiving message.
In true Toronto spirit, I encourage residents to do the same, to please help fellow Torontonians who are in need, whether it's food banks or local charities or just helping out a neighbor.
Tory says he hopes people are able to spend time with family on this holiday and also encourage people to vote in advance polls before the municipal election later this month. One homeless shelter in the nation's capital is serving its biggest Thanksgiving meal ever. The Ottawa mission is feeding several thousand people in need today. It's a number they say has soared since last year due to the rising cost of food. Celeste Kerr has more.
We're going to put on a fabulous meal today.
For weeks, volunteers and cooks at the mission have worked around the clock preparing turkey meals for those in need. It's an annual dinner the shelter puts on for Thanksgiving. The difference this year is the number of people they're serving.
We're going to do about 10 to 12,000 meals. We've gone through about 575 turkeys so far today, or this week.
Last year, the mission says it served around 10,000 people. They're seeing an increase in demand due to the rising cost of food that some people in the community can't afford.
It says to me that there is a need in our community for food, certainly, but also for care. A need for a holiday, a need for, a bit of special.
The Ottawa mission says it's on track to serve 1 million meals by the end of 2022, a record high for the shelter. Now that's food between its in-house residents, its takeout window, and its food trucks that you see behind me here that go out and serve the community.
Everything is so expensive, people cannot afford it, people cannot afford a turkey or a meal. It's the wages are down, but prices are higher.
The cost of a classic turkey dinner with all the fixings now costs more than $200 for a family of 4. That's a 12% jump from last year, according to Statistics Canada.
We're all feeling the pinch. When I go to the grocery store, I see it. I just think of someone who's living on such a marginalized budget. How in the world are they making ends meet when prices are escalating like we're seeing?
Happy Thanksgiving, sir.
It's a concerning situation for the mission, especially with the notoriously tough winter months ahead. More and more people will be in need of shelter and food. But with help from donors and community partners, they say they'll continue to help the city's vulnerable population.
They got me a new place to live. They hooked me up as a housing worker.
For 20 years, John has been coming to the shelter, and he's grateful for what the mission has done for him over the years. And today, he's giving a special thanks to the food.
I'm looking for my Thanksgiving dinner I have every year around this time. A lot of turkey for everybody. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Celeste Care, CBC News, Ottawa.
A similar scene at a soup kitchen in Windsor today. Volunteers have been busy handing out 300 to 400 meals per day all weekend long. The manager says a lack of affordable housing in the city has led to an increase in demand for their services, but those that did show up were thankful to walk away with a warm meal.
It's more than ever, because I guess this pandemic has happened. Obviously, it hit hard. We're trying to find some ways to survive.
Happy Thanksgiving. God bless.
What does it mean to somebody to get a meal like this on a day like today?
I say more than anything, they're happy, first of all, because they had a good meal. They're warmed up. They warm up because obviously overnight it's not warm now. And yeah, they're really super happy about that. Anything you can get for free and it's good, it fills you up and you're really, really happy. And thankful.
So with the money that you get from disability, it's not enough to
It's not enough for nothing. No, it's not enough to buy food. No.
Okay.
For the whole month? No, it's not.
That looks good.
Yes.
Thanksgiving dinner.
So I guess organizations like this, it does help.
Yeah,
eh?
it does help a lot. It really does. Yep.
Just being able to get a Thanksgiving meal, I mean, what does that mean?
It means a lot to me. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you should be grateful for, like your health, your life, and people, your friends, stuff like that. Yeah.
Wise words. It's World Mental Health Day, an initiative to bring awareness to the supports available for people and a reminder that you are not alone. Alicia Son has more.
These days, mental health is talked about, but often in a vague sense. Let's talk. Don't suffer in silence. Slogans are everywhere. Even days are proclaimed for mental health awareness. Today is World Mental Health Day, for example. But the reality is mental health is complex, with different challenges affecting whole communities of people differently. From new mothers experiencing postpartum depression, for example.
Being pregnant and everybody caring about mom and you going to all these appointments and then baby's born and then the focus is completely on baby. And so that can be a hard transition for new moms.
With World Mental Health Day falling on Thanksgiving Monday, it's also a good reminder for new families not to feel obligated to put on a brave face and learn to set boundaries.
Even though it can be hard, it can be really important to do for you and your mental health and the well-being of your family.
People can carry around a combination of oppressive stressors, especially those in marginalized communities.
It's almost like a trauma. We see racial distress as a form of trauma.
Dr. Lin Fang started an online counseling service called Talk It Out, making mental health supports more accessible for people experiencing racism.
And oftentimes in these more structural forms, people belong to these communities may not have access to the service that understand that needs. And that in a way is culturally responsive and in a way that understand the needs of those communities.
Regardless of what you're going through, most of the burden is on us to seek help.
Also seen some of my clients are actually taking stress leave because they're being overworked and they're being burned out.
Toronto therapist Vera Chang says employers should go beyond tweeting about mental health.
I would really encourage company to really think about, having 4-day work week or even dedicate work hours to self-care activities. That could be like working half day so the employee can go home and relax, right? By showing, by having, with the company, by doing this, it really shows the employees, that the company really care about the mental health well-being.
Family health, community health, and work-life balance all tie into mental health. While today can seem like just another hashtag, it doesn't have to be. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
An 80-year-old man in Brighton, Ontario says his 600 racing pigeons were seized while he was in hospital with COVID-19. The Humane Society was called to his property in January where they found over 300 of the birds dead and the rest unfed. Now he's facing an almost $23,000 bill, something he says he cannot afford. Tyler Cheese reports.
An empty hole, quiet. All day long you would hear roo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo, roo-coo-coo. Now, dead quiet.
This empty aviary stands as a reminder of everything Arthur Plashart has lost.
What was your attachment like to the birds?
Well, right now when I have no birds at all, I miss my birds. Of course, that's all I had. I have no wife, I have no children. That's all I had, my birds.
He's been raising racing pigeons for most of his life.
I know what kind of treats they like. And then you have your hand up, and then you have the peanuts there, and they come and fly on your hand, or they sit on your shoulder.
It all came to an end last Christmas when he was hospitalized for COVID-19.
You know, I had no backup. I never thought I was going to be ending up like this.
Friends offered to help check on the birds, but then there was a snowstorm. Eventually, the Humane Society came and found half of the 600 birds dead. They seized the rest.
I still remember him saying, we can keep them for 10 days, but it will cost you a lot of money. So then I said, well, I don't have that kind of money to pay out for the birds what you're taking me away, that you take away from me. So I said, you might as well keep them.
They told him the birds would become property of the Crown after 10 days, but Plashart didn't know he would still need to pay a bill that has now grown from $6,000 to nearly $23,000. Plashart has written extensively to the province's Animal Control Review Board, but was told he needed to appeal within 5 days of receiving the first bill.
These time frames are so short since we're dealing with living beings.
Exceptions are sometimes made, but this expert tells us it's probably too late in this case.
You have this document sitting with you for months and you leave it, then it becomes a question of why did this happen and is it fair to use public resources, namely having a tribunal convene to hear this dispute.
Now on the mend from COVID and back at home, Plashart says he still hopes he'll get the birds back someday.
You know, I'm 80 years old, but I'm still feeling pretty good to look after my birds.
Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Russia unleashed a barrage of missile attacks across Ukraine today, the biggest and most widespread since the early days of the war. At least 11 people have been killed and more than 60 wounded. Today's airstrikes targeted critical energy facilities and residential areas in major cities in Ukraine, including the capital where at least 8 people were killed. It's the most intense attack on Kyiv in a number of months and sent residents to bomb shelters during the morning rush hour. Here's a look at a map showing how extensive today's airstrikes were across Ukraine. Missiles even fell in the country's far west, where many refugees have fled, believing those regions to be safe. Some observers see these latest attacks as an act of desperation by Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Chris Brown now with more on that.
On the ground, Russia's military campaign is stalled. Ukraine is reclaiming territory, and thousands of new call-ups, such as these reservists, may not be enough to save Vladimir Putin's army from humiliation. So instead, and as he's done repeatedly, Putin ordered his military to kill Ukrainian civilians by firing salvos of cruise missiles and raining down death from the skies. Putin explained the escalation in a taped video address to his Security Council. If Ukraine's attempts to carry out acts of terrorism on our territory continue, Russia's response will be harsh, he said. Putin is referring to this presumed Ukrainian attack over the weekend on his pet project, the bridge to Crimea. Vehicles are moving across it again, but the damage has underscored the vulnerability of an essential Russian supply route. Putin is also under pressure from within to do something to turn the war around. He's cut a deal with one of his only allies, Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus. They're going to form new combat units, although it's not clear how they'll be deployed. And he's appointed a new commander for the Ukraine war, Sergei Surovikin, who was notorious for killing civilians in Syria.
If anything, it'll harden Ukrainian resolve. It'll harden the support that Ukraine is getting.
This war studies expert says Putin attacking civilians is a sign of desperation.
The hardliners now claim to be satisfied. Their problem, of course, is that none of this wins the war.
With all the strikes against civilian targets, Putin is signaling he's prepared to keep escalating to win. But the next move may come from the West, and whether countries will increase their supplies of weapons to Ukraine in response. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Jury selection began today in the Los Angeles trial of Harvey Weinstein. The disgraced movie mogul is facing 11 charges related to allegations of sexual assault and rape against women in California between 2004 and 2013. Now, one of the women who will testify at the trial is the wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Weinstein claims all the encounters were consensual. The 70-year-old is now imprisoned in New York, where he was convicted of rape and criminal sexual assault. That conviction in 2020 followed years of accusations of widespread sexual abuse and harassment in the film industry. New York's Court of Appeals granted Weinstein an appeal hearing. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly continued her visit to South Korea today amid mounting tension on the Korean peninsula. She visited the United Nations Memorial Cemetery, where she paid tribute to Canadians who lost their lives in the Korean War. Richard Kimber has more.
It's been a day of Canadian connections for Foreign Minister Melanie Joly that began with a visit to a United Nations Memorial Cemetery here in the southern city of Busan, where she paid tribute to some 380 Canadians who lost their lives while fighting alongside South Korea against the North during the Korean War of the 1950s.
Their hope of a peaceful and stable Korean peninsula continues and lives on.
She then came aboard the Canadian patrol frigate behind me, the HMCS Vancouver, to review its operations. It's currently stationed here in Busan as part of efforts to enforce United Nations security sanctions against Pyongyang by monitoring the transfer at sea of commodities such as fuel, which violate those sanctions. While aboard, though, she also took the opportunity to take part in a naval tradition whereby the highest-ranking officer on board serves Canadian Thanksgiving lunch to the rest of the 240 crew members, many of whom were delighted that she was the one handing over their food.
We have the minister visiting us, and it's an honor actually to have her on board. Having this celebration is having a little bit of at home on ship, and it feels pretty good.
The Foreign Minister's visit comes amid increasing regional security tensions here following a flurry of missile launches by North Korea in the last 2 weeks. Earlier Monday, Pyongyang said that those missile launches were specifically designed to simulate showering South Korea with tactical nuclear weapons and acting as a war deterrent against South Korea and the United States, who have been carrying out large-scale joint military exercises in the last few weeks, specifically themselves designed to deter North Korea from continuing with its missile program. Melanie Joly has condemned those missile launches, as have the United States, South Korea and Japan, but there is still no clear roadmap, analysts say, to find a means for dialogue with Pyongyang or for a means to denuclearize North Korea, leading to continued uncertainty ultimately about the security of the Korean peninsula and regional security across Asia. And that's one of the major goals from this trip by Foreign Minister Joly, to try and establish better communication with South Korea and Japan as to how the United States, Canada and its allies can start to hope to achieve that. Richard Kimber for CBC News in Busan, South Korea.
Please enjoy this Thanksgiving Monday together at Pumpkin Fest in Downsview Park.
We're very excited. It's our 7th year in operation, and last year was our best one yet. So we really just wanted to add to the fun, and it's now an extension for 3 weekends over October.
The Fall Fair has it all, from a pumpkin patch with lots of pumpkins, of course, to midway rides and different activities and entertainment for the children. And Dahlia, it was a nice day for it today.
That's right. I'm sure everyone was thankful for the gourd weather. I had to.
Anyways, so lovely sunshine today, and that's because of that tropical air that's been making its way through into Ontario and that high pressure system, but that won't be around for too long. We will have that low pressure system making its way in soon, and that's when we're gonna get those damp conditions. It is currently 13 degrees in Toronto, a little cooler out in Ottawa, 9 degrees, and a little warmer out in Windsor, 17 degrees. Now, while it is warmer in Windsor right now, there is a frost advisory for some parts of southern Ontario, pretty close to London and also Halton, Peel, and out in Ottawa. So make sure you're checking up on your plants and crops tonight, because look at that, Ottawa, -1 degree tonight. So we are sub-zero temperatures in Ottawa, giving us that frosty temperatures and those conditions that makes you want to check up on your plants and make sure that they're surviving all right, and also bundle up at nights. Toronto, 4 degrees and a little warmer out in Windsor, 8 degrees. And then if we take a closer look here, we were talking about the fact that there is that low pressure system making its way through across Ontario, and that's when we'll be seeing rain. Now, that won't really make its way into the GTA until Wednesday morning, and also in Goderich and London, so most of southern Ontario. And then if we take a look here in Ottawa, no rain really in sight, maybe some scattered showers really by Wednesday evening. Now, really also what we're going to be seeing is some strong winds, some winds gusting up to 50 kilometers an hour as we head into Tuesday morning for Toronto, and some windy conditions as well in Windsor. Winds will be gusting up to 35 kilometers an hour. So mixing in with that rain, expect some windy and rainy conditions Wednesday evening as well, and heading into Thursday, some scattered showers. Now tonight, temperatures will drop in southwestern Ontario, but for overall, we're not getting to those sub-zero temperatures, except for some areas, like I was saying earlier, London, 2 degrees. It might drop even more, and that's what there's that frost advisory. Markham, Oshawa, and Hamilton, again, cooler temperatures. That's why we're seeing that frost advisory as well, and not as cool like in Toronto. It's a little warmer, but still we will be seeing that frost advisory, especially in Renfrew, Ottawa, and Hawkesbury. There is temperatures below the 0 mark, and so you might want to check up on your crops and bundle up tonight. As for the 5-day forecast for Toronto, we are seeing mainly sunny skies, but also the damp conditions because of that low pressure system. So make sure you have an umbrella with you over the next few days. But the 21, Dwight.
Looking good, and we'll take it. Happy Thanksgiving,
yes.
and thank you, Dahlia.
Thanks, Dwight. Happy Thanksgiving.
That is it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Kelda Ewan has you covered late night. We're going to see you back here tomorrow. Hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe out there.